All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for our very first virtual ag tour of the 2023-2024 school year. I'm very excited that you've joined us today. Just a reminder, if you are unable to stay with us for the duration of the virtual tour, it will be in its entirety on our YouTube channel later this afternoon, and we'll send that link out via social media. Just a couple of reminders for our virtual ag tour. If you have any questions as we're going through today's tour, please feel free to enter those into the chat, and I will jump in and ask those at the appropriate time as we are meeting and learning from our guests for today. You should all be on mute. Please remain on mute for the duration of the virtual ag tour. And I hope you enjoy, and I hope to see those questions in the chat box. So my name is Katie Akins, and I'm with the Arizona Farm Bureau Ag in the Classroom program, and this is our live virtual ag tour. And I am so excited to have with us today Ben and Ashley Menges, who are going to tell us all about life on the ranch and work on the ranch. But I do have to share a sort of interesting story of the challenges that they've already faced this morning. So many of you, depending where your school is located, are experiencing some weather issues this morning. I know we're having some flooding here in the East Valley, and what a blessing that is for Ben and Ashley on their ranch as well. They are receiving rain today, which they are so excited about, but that rain did take out the power on the ranch. So they had to run into town to get to a place where they could jump on with us today. So Ashley's a little worried that she's a little wet, but we can't tell, so it's all right. But we appreciate the effort that you guys have made. I know it was a challenge this morning, but we're so happy to have you with us. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to you guys for the rest of our virtual ag tour. Again, if you have questions, go ahead and put those in the chat. Ben, Ashley, hello, good morning.
Hi, good morning, and thanks for having us, Katie, and for everybody that's joining us this morning. We're really excited to show you Menges Ranch and a little bit about our lifestyle.
So we ranch in Graham and Greenlee counties, which is over on the eastern side of the state. We are primarily on BLM land, which is Bureau of Land Management land. We've been there since the 80s, and over in Graham County since the early 90s. On the bottom right, you see that this ranch feeds 5,670 American families every single year.
And I think one of the neat things about ranching on public lands is that we do get a lot of people that are driving past the ranch, going out to fish, going out to ride on side-by-sides. And so they get to see these signs and realize the value that public lands play in feeding the American family. And so our ranch is a family-owned and operated business, and it is Ben's side of the family. We ranch with his parents side by side, mostly with his dad, but I'll let him share a little bit about that.
Sure. My dad, he comes by ranching pretty honestly. 3 of his 4 grandparents were ranchers, and so he was raised as a rancher, and so I'm the same way. I've been on the ranch, raised on the ranch, and I've been involved in ranching my entire life.
And we both come from a pretty big ranching family. On the picture on the left, you'll see my grandfather on the horse. On the right, our family is a neat thing. We have a lot of similar family history. They started by ranching in Texas and then moved their way to ranching in New Mexico and then ended here with ranches in Arizona. So I grew up in northern Arizona in a town called Holbrook, where my mom's family still ranches. And then Ben's dad settled here in southeastern Arizona. In the middle, you'll see a picture of Ben and his dad. I think that's one of the neat things that we love about ranching with family is that not only is this a daily job, but it really is a lifestyle. And it's a great way to create a connection, not only with the land, but with your family members. And I think that we just really look forward to the day when we get to raise a family with the same lifestyle, horseback. And then to the right, you'll see the Menges family. Ben also has 2 other brothers. Some are involved in ranching, some aren't, but everybody comes back and helps out at the ranch on our really big and busy days.
So here you'll see some of our yearling cattle. We sell our cattle as yearlings. We drive them across into a certain area, and we take them back to the house and wean them. And then we put them on pasture for 30 to 60, sometimes 90 days. And then we'll ship them, and we'll get into that a little later. But this is us driving them back down to the house to ship them out. And so it's a long process. And, you know, when you think of the conception rate of you're not going to be paid for that conception rate for about 2 years, because the entire length of the cow's gestation period. And then after the calf is born, you have to grow the calf. And then, so when we sell our yearlings, then they're not going to be mature or enough to sell for 2 years. So that's one of the things about ranching that I don't think a lot of people realize.
And a few things you might notice, some big takeaways from some of these videos, is our terrain is extremely rocky. So we ranch on a very rocky ranch, which means, to put that in perspective, I mean, there really isn't the opportunity to farm this land. There's not a lot that you can do with this land. So the fact that we're able to take something as rocky as it is and create a product for people to consume and to gain protein from is really, really neat. So that's one aspect. And you also see that there's a lot of different terrain. So we ranch high up in the Rocky Mountains, and then we also ranch down in some river areas. And so that changes a lot. Everything that we do is done horseback. And in a few slides, you'll get to meet some of the crew, all of our horses. They really do make life easier and enjoyable, and sometimes extremely entertaining.
So horses are completely necessary to the operation. The rocks that you see here, they're volcanic rocks. They're called Malpai rocks, and so they're pretty sharp. So it's necessary for us to use horses to gather our cattle. In 2022, I counted up the amount of days that I spent on horseback, and it was over 150. And so it's completely something. The horses are a tool, and yes, I enjoy being on a horse, but there's something that we definitely need to ranch in this terrain.
I think a great example of how ranching, even in Arizona, can be so different. So where I grew up, it's really flat, really soft. We never had to put shoes on our horses, and you could see for miles. And then moving out here to where Ben and his family ranched, it's extremely rocky. We put shoes on our horses, and you definitely have to work to go and find those cattle. Another note that I wanted to add here is that you'll see most of our cattle are Black Angus. They have some form of Black Angus in them, and we run a commercial Black Angus herd.
Ben and Ashley, on this photo, can you tell us why you are ponying horses?
Oh yeah, that's a great question.
Sure. So we go across, we ranch on Bonita Creek on 3 different rivers or creeks. Bonita Creek, the Gila River, and the San Francisco River. And so right here, we're going across Bonita Creek to camp out. And so we'll need a few different horses while we're camping out, because they get tired, and we'll be there for a few days. So
yeah, this is my favorite ride of the year. And so every year I try to make sure that I get to make it a little bit of a backstory. Ben works completely on the ranch. I work off the ranch, but sometimes I get the privilege of joining him. So this, just like Ben said, we camp across the creek for days. So we have to bring extra horses so that we can switch off. And then where we're going, it's actually not that accessible to take a truck and trailer, and it would take longer for us to try to haul horses over there in a truck and trailer. So we get to pony them across. This is one of, I think, my favorite rides. It's a really enjoyable time.
At the beginning, if we could go to where they were in the river, we're driving, right here, we're driving cattle across Bonita Creek, up to the other side of the creek, so we could actually access them with a trailer and haul them down, because we don't have access where we were camping.
And then something else too is, like we said, we're a family owned and operated ranch, and Ben works with his dad every single day, but we also rely on, like, big days like this, family members will come, other cowboys that ranch or do day work for the Mengeses will come. So some days we do need a big crew, and we're able to hire guys to come and help us.
Sure. Ashley kind of already alluded to it, but we have mostly Black Angus cattle. You see the one white one looking back at you on the top picture there, but think about 90 to 95% Black Angus. Black Angus is a good breed to increase marbling in your herd. They're also fairly docile for the most part, and they're good for the business. They say that Angus is the business breed, and so Angus is where the market has been for a long time, and so we think that it's a good place to be with our genetics.
And so on the picture on the right, you'll see a man on the horse with a rope, and that is actually Ben's dad, Jeff. And so Ben and Jeff are at every single one of our gathering and brandings, making sure that everything is running smoothly. The picture in the middle, one of our dirt tanks. Water is really important on the ranch, and we'll hit on that a little bit too, but we have dry years and we have wet years, and this is a great example of a year that we had gotten some good rain. You can see that we have some water there in the dirt tank, and even there on the side of that mountain, this is on the Greenlee side of the ranch, you can see a lot of poppies. On years that we have really wet rains, we get beautiful flowers, and so there really are some great things to see. So
right now, since we've had a big storm, after the storm, I'll be checking these dirt tanks. They're all dry right now, but I'll be checking these dirt tanks to see if we've caught any water. And if we haven't caught any water, then I'll be pumping more water. And I think we'll get to that in a little bit, but it's definitely a good system to have a backup plan on the water from rainfall. Instead have to pump.
So here's a little bit where we talk about that water. I'll let Ben explain this video.
Right, so we pump out of Bonita Creek, which is in Graham County here. We have a few different pumps on the ranch, but we pump out of a riparian area into upland areas, and we pump into storage tanks. Here's a picture or a video of the pump house that I pump out of. This job requires quite a bit of self-motivation. You know, there's no one here to check up on me, but if the cows are if I don't pump, then the cows are going to be out of water. And so it's definitely a job that requires quite a bit of self-determination. And so that's one of the things I think people might not understand about ranching, is that you don't really have a boss. You're your own boss, and there's no one to check up on you if you don't do a good job, but you'll know it if your cows are out of water. There's a picture of a 30,000 gallon storage tank that we're pumping into that provides peace of mind when you have that much storage. So that you don't have to worry about the tank going dry when you have a big storage tank. Right below that, there's a picture of an example of a trough. And there's a bighorn sheep and javelina there. Those are all getting water off of the troughs and the waters that we provide on the ranch. I think a lot of us, we like to go hunting, and we don't recognize that the rancher is actually providing all of the water for these animals in the upland areas. If they're watering out of a creek or a river, that's a different story. But when they're in an upland area, the rancher is the one that's causing those animals to be in those areas. And so that's one of the things that I think we need to think about when we're on public land and hunting.
Now, we thought it would be really important to share how we are really cautious about our water use. When you think about the water that we use on the ranch, in 3 days, more water evaporates from Tempe Town Lake than we use on our ranch in an entire year. And so we're really proud about that. We're really aware of our water usage.
Sure. I think people use 20 gallons of water or 80 gallons of water a day. And a cow, a 1,200-pound animal, roughly uses about 20 gallons of water per day because they're just drinking. So, when you compare the size of a person to the size of cow, it's really, it's 4 times as much use from a person as a cow.
And we think that's really important, especially with everything that's going on with water in Arizona. And like Ben said, the role that ranchers play on public lands is making sure that these lands are well taken care of, that the animal and vegetation species that live on the ranch are being taken care of. Not only do we put out water, but we put out salt and mineral blocks, which also benefit the wildlife. And it's really neat when the ranch is doing well. We're really excited because not only are we thinking about our livelihoods, but we're wanting to preserve the land for the next generation. So being a public land rancher, there's a lot of pressure with maintaining the lands.
Now, we see in some of these pictures, it doesn't appear to be a ton of vegetation in some of these photos. Are there ever times that you have to bring in supplemental feed for the cattle, or do you move them to different areas and pastures based on the vegetation that's available?
There's times where we've had to rotate. We have a pasture on my side of the ranch where we have to move cattle when it's really dry. We leave that pasture pretty much rested all of the time, just in case we have no monsoon, which is kind of how it's been until today this year. And we also put out supplement for our cattle basically year round. And that provides nutrients that aren't available in the native grasses. One of the things that we're deficient in our area is iodine. So all of our salt block is iodized. And so we're able to provide our cattle with the proper nutrition in that way by putting out supplement.
And the other thing that I was going to add here is that Ben spends all of his summer concentrated on water. Spring and fall are really the exciting times when they're working cattle and they're horseback, but all of summer is concentrated on water, and it can be a very stressful job. And also, I don't know if you would consider this, but I think that there's things that are fun and romanticizing about ranching, and then there's things that are just stressful and kind of like dirty jobs that I don't think a lot of people would consider enjoyable.
Yeah, I remember I saw a video from Apple's CEO, and he said, if you love the quote, "If you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life," is something that you should ignore, because I love what I do, but what I do is also work. And I think, Katie, I could tell that you love what you do, but you'd probably tell me that you've had some days that are work also. And so, that's something that I think we should all ignore, because we're all going to have days that are hard. One of my first days back at the ranch, we had a cow that got stuck in one of these big tanks, and we had to pull out. So that wasn't exactly a fun day. After we got her out, my dad said, "This is what you went to college for." So, but I love what I do, but what I do also is quite a bit of work.
Oh, and also, Katie, another thing about vegetation, I think something neat is that cows are really good at adapting. And so on really dry years, you'll even start to see them eat the pads of the prickly pear cactus. So once they start to dry out and all of the spines have fallen off, they even eat those to find nutrients.
Yeah, that's these prickly pear are your last resort in ranching. Once they start eating that, that's basically the last thing you have left, and you're going to have to move them to a different area.
And then technology, I think there's a lot of things that we use that we've been using for generations, a lot of new things that Ben has been really great about bringing innovation to the ranch. So he talked about pumping water a few slides ago, and you'll see up in the right-hand corner, we have one of our solar pumps. And actually, one of the teachers that's on the call helped install that solar pump. Shout out to Craig Ball, who works on the ranch sometimes during his not so busy seasons.
Yeah, right. So Craig installed that on the top right, the solar panels, and we're able to pump almost all of the water on the ranch is pumped using solar power. And so I don't think, we're drinking bottled water here. And I don't think we could say that all of the water that we're drinking came to us with zero emissions, but our cows can say that the water they're drinking came to them with zero emissions. And so we think that's pretty cool. On the bottom, the middle, we've recently been installing those are called ranch bots, and those measure the water level of your storage tanks. And so that saved me quite a bit of time. For example, one tank is about 2 hours from my house, but now I could just check how full the tank is on my phone. And so that cuts out about half the time. I still have to go to the tank and put out salt and whatever. But I think that's one of the things that we want to expand on. Ashley's included some of the old technologies that we have here, squeeze chute. Sometimes when we get cattle in that haven't been branded, we'll have to brand them in the chute, and we still use a fire. I know a lot of people use electric brands now, but we're still old school.
Yeah, and then every calf gets ear tagged when they're branded. Different ear tags mean different things. Heifers in our herd, they'll get a different color ear tag, and then we'll also take a DNA sample, and we send those DNA samples off to get read. Ben gets that data back, and then he has an idea of who we should keep in the herd based on the traits that he's looking for. And so that's another really neat thing in terms of technology that ranchers, especially Ben and I, are using in the herd in terms of trying to keep certain genetics in our herd and looking to make cattle that are more efficient, better for consumers, a lot of different traits that are ideal.
We've been emphasizing calving ease because we're in large pastures and we can't pull calves. For the most part, we have 60 to 100 acres per cow. And so that's unique to the entire nation, really. And so calving ease is really important. We also emphasize marbling and ribeye area. Marbling is one of the most heritable traits. And so it's pretty easy to pass down good marbling from one generation to the next. And so marbling is pretty important to meat because it's the fat content of the meat, which makes it tender and more palatable for the consumer.
Yeah, and I will say about branding with a fire like we do, that's another great example of everybody does it differently. Whether you brand with a fire, you have an electric brand, maybe you use a calf table or you rope everything. But we went and worked at a friend's ranch, and they had an electric brand, and we had to stop, I think, 2 times because we ripped the electric brand completely off its cord. So it was definitely showing some of the benefits of branding with the fire.
Ashley and Ben, can we take just one step back? You used some words in in this slide that maybe our friends are not familiar with, and one of those was heifer. Can you maybe explain to them what that is, and maybe those other 3 vocab words when you're explaining cattle, calves, bulls, steer, etc.?
Yeah.
Okay, sure. So a steer is a bull that has been castrated, and so it can no longer breed. A heifer is a cow that hasn't had a calf yet, and so all of the DNA samples that we take are on our heifers, and we normally buy bulls, but the heifers we select partially, not entirely, but partially on the DNA sample. And let's see, calves is a baby cow. Cow is a mother cow.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Bull is a father cow.
yeah. So heifer is like, even in more like layman's term, heifer is a young girl and steer is a young boy who can't be a dad. Does that work for you, Katie?
That works. Thank you.
Yeah. And so a little bit about like the ranch operations itself. Like I said, in spring and fall is really when a lot of the cattle work is being done. So in fall, which we're going to start here pretty soon, we're a little bit behind just because of how hot it's been. But in fall, the way that it kind of looks in terms of the life cycle at the ranch. So we'll start calving out. Then we'll go around to each pasture, gather and brand. And then in spring, we'll go ahead and wean. So kind of to just talk about this a little bit specifically is at branding, that's when we're going to go ahead and take account of how many calves we have in the pasture and how many steers and heifers. We will give them their brand. That's what we utilize to identify that these cattle are ours. Each calf will get an ear tag that we talked about, depending on what sex they are, which herd they belong to.
Well, the ear tags, they're actually electronic identification tags, and you can scan the cow's ear tag or the yearling's ear tag, and it will take you back to where that cow has been, and it'll show where it's from all across the nation and actually all across the world now. And so that's kind of where the industry is headed, is making these EID tags mandatory. But I think that's a good example of technology in ranching.
Yeah, and then in weaning, what we'll do is we will take all of our yearlings. So those are the calves that are hitting about a year old. We will separate them from a herd and move them to a different pasture on the headquarters. And so here's where you get to see a lot of our predominantly black cattle. In the middle picture, you see Ben roping in one of our corrals on our pasture. And there you can see, again, it is really rocky. And then our biggest day of the year is shipping day. So that is where we take all of our yearlings that we have weaned. We gather them up. We take them and we drive them down to the headquarters. So Ben's parents live on the headquarters of the ranch. That's where Ben grew up, and a lot of the main operations happen. So we take them there to the headquarters in a corral. We sort them. So there we sort them based again on whether they're a steer or a heifer. And we try to put them in similar loads in terms of size. They get weighed. So here you'll see Ben's dad at the scale. The cattle are driven up onto a scale, and then Ben's dad or Ben and the cattle buyer will stand there at the scale and we'll go ahead and weigh them so that we get an accurate weight. And then once they're all weighed and agreements are made, then they're put on the truck and they're shipped out. And most of our cattle go to Kansas.
Well, yeah, this year they went to Kansas and Colorado. The rancher gets one paycheck a year for the most part. And that is on shipping day. And well, at least on this ranch. And so, so that's our most important day of the year on the ranch. And it's something that we try to make kind of a big deal. We invite a lot of people and have a lunch and stuff at the headquarters.
Yeah, that's why I think that it's like I said, the biggest day of the year. Most of Ben's family will come back to the ranch. A lot of the guys that work there consistently come back to the ranch along with their family members. And not only is it a big business day, it's also a nice fun day. I think it's a really enjoyable day where we make a lot of memories. And then a little bit about our crew. So like we said, we work everything horseback, and we're so lucky that we have a really great crew. We also, I'd say Ben relies sometimes on the dogs. Our dogs aren't as good of cattle dogs as maybe some other, but they really are, they're getting better, and they help us a lot in some sticky situations. So introducing you to the crew that lives on Menges Ranch. So on our top line, you'll see all of our cattle dogs. We have Mags, Hasty, and Hannah. And then we start with all of the horses that we have on the ranch. We have Woodrow, Moses, Delmar, Superman, Joe, Pete, Einstein, and Everett. And so Ben gets to ride a lot of these horses very consistently. I kind of like one and I stick with him. So my main mount is Everett down on the bottom right corner. Ben, who would you say is your favorite horse?
Oh, I don't know. Probably Moses.
Yeah, I'd say Moses. Before it was Einstein, now it's definitely Moses. As you'll see, all of our dogs are females and all of our horses are geldings, which is a cut horse. It's a cut male horse. It's a boy horse who can't have babies.
Yeah, gelding is the equivalent to a steer.
Yeah. But I think that's one of the things that is most enjoyable is working things horseback.
Yeah.
It definitely makes you feel connected not only to the land, but I think also to the history and the culture of ranching.
And the horses and the cattle for me go hand in hand. I don't know if I'd have horses if I didn't have to use them, but I enjoy ranching with horses more than I think I would if I was just, I don't know, gathering on a side-by-side or a four-wheeler.
Yes, and I think I would have horses even if I didn't have cattle. I think they're a great, another man's best friend. So yeah, this is the crew that we use. A lot of them come from the same line and are all related, and Ben gets them from the same place. And so we've had really good luck with them.
Ashley and Ben, can you give us an example of what your dogs do to help you on the ranch?
Well, I have a good video of Mags pushing them out of the creek when, you know, they get in, sometimes the cattle get into the brush and Mags will go in and bark and push them out for you so you don't have to get off your horse. Sometimes when something runs off, the dogs will hold them up and go in the front of them and keep them from running away from you and wait for you to get there. A dog, it requires a lot of training, and you know, I'm not going to say that we have the best cow dogs, but they require a lot of time, and they can make your life either really miserable or really good. And so, you know, when that dog's running behind a cow and biting it at the heels and you're trying to get around it, that's a pretty frustrating experience. So you don't want that to happen. You definitely want dogs to hold up your cattle and keep them in a bunch.
Yeah, there's places, especially like Ben said, when we're working the river or the creek, that are near impossible to get on horseback, that you've got to get off and try to crawl through. And so dogs really help in that situation. Mags is definitely a dog that'll work from behind. The minute that a cow turns around and faces her, she takes off the other way. Hasty, I'd say, is our best cow dog.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, she gets after them when she needs to, and she's pretty good at listening to Ben. She doesn't listen to me to save our lives. So when Ben's not there, the dogs, except for Mags, go everywhere and they don't listen to me.
Okay, so here's a few of our goals. We definitely keep cattle, our animal welfare in mind. This is a picture of me roping here. That's actually the least stressful way to brand your calves. Arizona has brand laws. Everybody has to brand calves, and a brand is a mark to determine identification. But they measured cortisol levels, which cortisol is the stress hormone for cattle and people, I guess. But the lowest cortisol levels are when the calves are in there with their mothers, which is how we brand our calves. The highest are when you're pushing them through the chute to brand. And so that's the reason that we brand the way we do. The stewards of the land and resources for future generations, that's goes along with sustainability. We want to make the ranch completely sustainable for the next generation. And that's what sustainability means to me, is being able to pass the ranch on to another generation and not overgrazing it, not ignoring the erosion control and things that create topsoil on your land. The first and foremost, we need to take care of the land that we're on. And I think that's one of the main focuses that we have. That's why we ranch with so many acres per cow, so we don't overgraze.
Yeah, we want to make sure that we maintain the land so that people can also enjoy it. So the public has an opportunity to hunt and fish and go on hikes and different recreational activities. Another one of our big goals is to create a healthy and nutritious product for not only consumers to eat, but also for ourselves. That's one thing about agriculture that people tend to forget, is that not only are we creating this product for others to eat, but we consume it as well. And so we want to make sure that we're doing the best we possibly can to have a healthy and nutritious product. And then really the thing that I think is the most true for me is just to really enjoy how blessed we are that we live this life and that we get to work alongside our family. I think that we're really lucky to be able to ranch and to be able to ride horseback. Not a lot of people can say that they do that. And I think that it really connects us to past generations. I always feel really honored that I'm getting to do the work that my ancestors have. And I enjoy the job, and I really love working with Ben's family and his parents. And we're really blessed that they've given us this opportunity to ranch alongside them.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a lot of kids when they're really little that say that they want to be a cowboy, and we got to be cowboys, or cowboy and cowgirl. But you know, a cowboy is just someone that didn't grow up. He got to fulfill his dreams as a little kid. So
yeah, so we're really lucky that we're getting to live our dream every day, and it makes us really excited. And then on the screen, like Ben said, he is roping there on the left. The top right, you'll see me on Everett pushing some cattle. Ben's roping on Moses. And on the bottom right, you'll see Ben's dad, Jeff, looking over the land as we gather on shipping day, and he's on his trusty steed, Pete. So this is just a video. I don't think you guys are able to hear the sound, but there's a lot of great views, and sometimes it just takes a moment to really take it all in. Here's Ben on Superman with our, as you can see, our great work dogs there in the back, just making sure that everything's going smoothly. And that video is on the Greenlee County side of the ranch. And so really, we appreciate all of you tuning in. We thank you so much, Katie, for this opportunity. If anyone's interested, we do have a Menges Ranch Facebook We have a TikTok. It's views from the saddle. It's Ben's TikTok. It's great views of the ranch, and there is not only informative ones, but I also think there's some really entertaining comedic relief ones as well.
We'll take any questions.
Yeah, if there's any questions.
Ben and Ashley, I'll ask you really quick if you can close out your PowerPoint, and that way we can get you guys on video so they can see your face as well. I'm gonna go ahead and highlight you guys here. Oh, look, now they can see your beautiful faces.
Yes. And we're at the Graham County Extension Office. Thank you, Graham County, for letting us bombard you.
So it looks like we hit a lot of the questions. You guys hit a lot of the questions throughout the presentation today. You guys are always so good at elaborating on what you do. So we appreciate your time here with us today. And we might just give another moment for questions. Anything else? Maybe Ben, you know, one of the things that you guys have done here today is explain to us all of the different jobs and skills that you have to have and do on the ranch, right? A lot of people think, oh, cowboy, I ride a horse and there's cows out there and they just make the beef and that's all that there is to it. But we can see and appreciate your passion and hard work for caring for not only the environment, but for those animals and producing us a nutritious product. So can you share with us what is your favorite job on the ranch, and maybe what's your least favorite?
Okay, so riding a horse in a new horse, I think, is probably my favorite. Getting that horse to understand how to follow a cow, and I like branding. I like dragging the calves to the fire. Those are probably my favorites. Anything to do with a horse is a good day. That said, I told the story about the cow pulling the cow out of the tank. I think that probably the days where I'm out of water, those are the roughest days, where my pump goes down, or a bear just recently broke a water float, and so all the water came out of the trough and drained the tank, and so things like that. Those are stressful days, but all in all, I think the majority of the time I just feel very blessed to have the job.
We did just have a question come in, and I'm sure you guys know, just because, well, you're ranchers, so you watch this stuff. Do you have any estimates on the amount of rain that you received last night or whenever it started for you guys?
I think it's about 1.2 inches. So hopefully we caught some tank water and I won't have to pump as much.
Our fingers are crossed for you. We hear it's supposed to continue to rain maybe throughout today and into tomorrow. So we hope you guys get as much as you can. So with that, looks like we don't have any more questions. So we're going to let Ben and Ashley get on their way. I know Ben's got a busy day at the ranch. They have no power, so they've got some things to figure out. And Ashley is going to be working at fair. So all of those of you who are in 4-H and FFA understand what Fair Week is, and Ashley's in the middle of that. So we appreciate both of you and your time and willingness to share what you guys are able to do on a regular basis, and appreciate that hard work you do every day to provide these products for us. So thank you.
Thanks, Katie. I just wanted to give a shout out. Thanks, Kayla, for getting on, because it's also Kayla's Fair Week as well. And a big shout out to Craig. Not only is he a great advisor and a great teacher, but he also comes out and works on the Menges Ranch too. And so he's one of the Menges Ranch Cowboys. So thanks, Craig, for getting on as well. But awesome. Thanks, Katie. We really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you next month with our live virtual ag tour on sod, also known as grass. Stay tuned to our social media accounts for that information, and be sure to check back later today on our social media accounts, AZFB AITC, for the full recording from today's tour. Thanks, everyone.